I paid $500 for this limited edition Halo Infinite Xbox Series X, but the problem is the seller said the HDMI port is loose. So let's get it unboxed and see what's going on. If we have time in this video, I'll also be taking a look at this Xbox Series S. The seller tried to fix it himself and that didn't go very well. So I'll either take a look at this Series S in this video or another video in the future. Now the seller said this comes with the controller that comes in this limited edition set, as well as two other controllers. And let's see, here's one of them. So we do have that one, kind of gross on the thumbsticks, but really not too bad. That's also an Xbox One controller. And same with this one. I mean, they're nice looking. This one's got a custom shell. That's kind of cool. But, oh, these are Power A controllers. So these are third-party controllers, which is fine. That's kind of cool that they come with it. But this one, I'm hoping, oh, it is not the controller that came with this limited edition. I was thinking that they included that, but clearly they didn't. Yeah, that's still fine. That's still a decent deal. $500 for this is a pretty good price since these are just so hard to find. I've been looking for one of these for so long. So let's get it out and have a look though, and then see what's going on with this HDMI port. All right, and here we go. Oh, that is beautiful. I've always loved the Xbox limited edition ones. It's got this, this groove in the case here. And yeah, look at the front of that. So nice. Same groove in the case that goes all the way down. The gold feature on the button here. Xbox just really, in my opinion, knocks it out of the park with their special editions. Okay, now let's take a look at this HDMI port. Oh yeah, it's not necessarily loose, the port itself, but you can see it's all messed up in there. We got a pin that's stuck up in there, and then the outer case of this thing is all bent. So this definitely needs an HDMI port replacement, and the great news is it looks like the seller didn't try to do this himself. This label has not been peeled up, and there's not a hole to remove this screw over here. So let's get this thing apart and see if it's gonna be as easy as an HDMI replacement or if there's anything else going on. And I'm gonna do the thing that a lot of people hate. I'm going to stab through the sticker in order to get to the screw. There we go. A lot of people would rather see me remove this label than stab through it, but I've just found that that is much more difficult and takes forever, and usually you can still tell that the label has been removed. Oh, we got some dust coming out of this thing already. Oh wow, the heatsink is plugged. Look at that. We definitely need to take care of that, and this is gonna be one that definitely needs the perfect amount of thermal paste. Also, look at this. The bottom of the stand, the part that no one really even sees. Xbox made this kind of look like a starry night sky or something. Just the level of detail on these is really good in my opinion. That's why Xbox's special editions are some of my favorite. Also got a bunch of hair over here, and I'm just gonna start taking this apart, see what other surprises we can find in here. Uh-oh. I don't even know what all of this is, but that looks disgusting. I really hope there's no roaches in this one. That is just gross. Oh boy. And let's see how gross the fan looks. Pretty gross. The fan even has these little blue specks of paint, which is also just so cool. So this definitely needs to be cleaned out. Also, I love that instead of the green right here, they've got the blue piece right here so you can see that from the other side. So we definitely need to make sure this fan gets really nice and clean so we can see that from the top. Okay, let's see how ugly this gets on the inside. Oh, after we disconnect this connector. This connector actually is a very common one for people to break when they're doing this kind of work themselves. There's a little metal locking tab you need to push down while you pull out the ribbon cable. There we go. Now we can slide it back and pull it straight out and see how nasty the case is. Okay, not really as bad as I thought, but we definitely do need to do some cleaning in there. So let's have a look at the insides and see how bad they look. Okay, we already know about the plugged heatsink. Let's have a look at the top here and the bottom. Okay, this is actually good. There's not really any signs of liquid damage. We do have some debris kind of plugging up the vents for the power supply, so we need to take care of that issue. Other than that, I don't see any liquid damage, which is good. That's one of the things I was worried about. So let's keep getting this thing torn down, see what we find on the boards, see if there's any other damage other than that HDMI port. Okay, and the first metal plate comes off and gives us our look at the first board. All right, look at this. This is the speaker for the custom sounds this Xbox makes. Once I'm done with this, we'll turn this thing on and listen to them. But overall, this board looks fine as far as I can tell, so we need to get the power supply off though, and then we can really have a look at the whole thing. And the second plate comes off. All right, good. No liquid damage, no surprises here. That's what I like to see. Ah, so they redid this connector right here. It used to have tabs on the side that you push in while you pull the connector out. Now there's a tab in the middle. I'm not sure if I like that or not. On the sides, it's nice because you can just push in and pull them all out at the same time. Okay, this one I can see advantages to this though, because then you make sure that the whole ribbon cable gets in there how it should. So yeah, that's not too bad anyway. And then this can come off. Let's have a look at the other side first. And I don't see any issues on this side. Everything visually looks fine. There we go. And they've also disregarded this metal plate that goes over the top of the X-clamp. I love that. That makes it so much easier to just get right to this and get it off. There we go. Now a lot of times I do loosen these screws kind of in a star pattern. I don't know that it's really that important, but I mean this X-clamp does put a lot of pressure on the APU chip, so I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's a good idea. Can't say for sure about that though. And now this board should just come right off, I think. There we go. And let's have a look at the other side. We definitely don't have the perfect amount of thermal paste. Actually, this is interesting. They put a lot on here. It goes all the way out here on this, so that's kind of crazy. But other than that, I don't see any issues at all with this entire board. So I'm gonna get that thermal paste cleaned up, but first let's get this HDMI port replaced. Then we can do the cleaning on this Series X and get it all put back together and see if it works. And what do we have here? It's a little ant. Well, the remains of a little ant. Sorry, little guy. What a way to go. Usually when I'm removing these HDMI ports, I just have the board up like this. So then when I heat these mounting pins, it'll just fall out the bottom. I want you guys to be able to see that a little bit better though. So I'm gonna mount it just like this. I'm gonna use my hot air gun to heat this up right here, and that will heat up these 4 mounting pins right here. But then it will also heat up all of these little pins back here. There's 19 small pins back here that connect to the board. And I have to make sure those are hot enough, because if I don't, this port will start to come off, and it'll actually, if those aren't melted, then it'll rip those traces right off the board. So I need to make sure that the port is plenty hot, and the way I do that is I just keep heating this until the port basically just falls right out on its own. Now, unfortunately, I had to abandon my method of showing you guys how that port falls off just because these ports take so much heat. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get enough heat on it in that position, so I did have to move it, but we did get the port off. And unfortunately, I actually tore some of the pads a little bit off the board, something that I was just telling you how that you need to be careful not to do. But unfortunately, like I said, for some reason, I was just not able to get as much heat on this port and the solder around these pins as I needed to. But even though that's the case, these traces are still on the board. They didn't tear all the way off. So even though it should have had more heat to come off cleanly, it's going to be fine because I can use my pick to move these traces and the pins around to get a good solid connection there. So that's what I'm going to do now. I have a little bit of flux on it. That's just there to help the solder flow. So now I'm going to come through with my iron and solder on each of these pins from the HDMI port to the pad on the board. And once that's done, we can get this console cleaned up and put back together. Now, as I was soldering these 19 pins on, I did break one of the traces on the board that connected to one of the pins, so I had to come in with enameled wire, melt off some of the wire, connect it to the trace on the board, and then connect that wire to the pin on the HDMI port. Even though you see some of these pins moving, those are the ones that are on the pads that are loose. So the main thing is that they're connected to the pad, and ideally they'd be connected to the board, but they're not, so as long as they're connected to each of the pads they're supposed to be, that's the main thing. Now, since I messed this up so bad down here, I'm actually gonna apply some conformal coating. That's just gonna add some strength to all those pins on the HDMI port and the board. I'm actually gonna try this new product I've never tried before, TG Shield by Thermal Grizzly. Just gonna give it a try. Looks kind of like nail polish for electronics. Pretty thin, which is nice. It'll get down in all the little cracks down in here. Cover up these traces as well. Okay, now I just need to give that about 20 minutes or so to dry, and then we should be good to go. One of the things I was thinking about when I was thinking about how badly I botched this HDMI job is I think at some point I turned my hot air station down to do a different job, and then I never turned it back up. So instead of having the right amount of heat on this, it was unfortunately just not enough heat. At least that's what I think what might have happened. But it just goes to show, just because you've done it a whole bunch of times doesn't mean you can just let your guard down and just kind of do whatever. You still got to be careful, and you still got to make sure you're doing it the right way. If I would have just slowed down and made sure my heat was at the right setting and recognized that it wasn't coming off properly, then I could have reset my hot air station and then done the job correctly. Not that this isn't correctly, I mean, I'm fixing it as well as I can, and this repair is gonna last a long time. There's not gonna be any problem there. It just would have looked much better if I didn't have all the wires and the red conformal coating there. Let's get the thermal paste done and then give this thing a good cleaning. Gotta make sure that it's nice and clean. That way when you put the thermal paste on, it's gonna get really good contact with the APU and with the heatsink as well. And here we go with the perfect amount of thermal paste. And there we go. Now let's get this heatsink cleaned up. I still can't believe how bad this heatsink is. But I mean, this console is several years old, and some people just live in a dirty, dusty environment. Look at that. Ah, so much better, but that's so much dust. I'm gonna go ahead and get in there even more to make sure and just get everything out we can. Okay, I am gonna use a little bit of canned air, just as little as possible while getting the job done. A lot of times people ask me why I don't use compressed air. And I don't use compressed air because when you use compressed air, you're blowing all that dust inside the area that you're working in. In my case, I have expensive cameras and lighting and microphones, and the less dust I have in here, the better. So I do sometimes use canned air just to spray off the little bits that I need to, but I don't use compressed air just to help keep my environment clean. And now with the fins all cleaned, and with the thermal paste cleaned off of the contact area for the APU, we can start finally putting this thing back together. Okay, it does kind of make me nervous that I can't test this thing, but I think I have all those pins on there soldered correctly. I think everything's just how it needs to be. It's just always hard when you can't test something before you put it back together. But that'll make it more fun once we get this together and we actually try to turn it on. I'm just moving some of this thermal paste back over these chips right here. Sometimes when I have it on my bench and stuff, it kind of squishes it out from where it should be. So just making sure that these chips right here have really good contact with the thermal paste. And now it's time for the XClamp. When I reinstall this, I kind of do what I did when I took it apart. I kind of tighten one at a time in a sort of crisscross pattern. Not that it really matters that much. It'd probably be fine either way, but just like to make sure it's spreading the pressure evenly over the chip instead of putting a whole bunch of pressure on one corner and not any pressure on the rest. XClamp is on. Now we can put this cable on and then this mid-frame piece on. Okay, there we go. And now we can put the next board on. which is this guy right here. There we go, and there we go. So we got the guts already, but this is pretty dirty inside, so we got to give this a little bit of cleaning. There's like full-on spider webs in here or something. I don't know what's going on with this thing. That's disgusting. Like big old chunks of hair in here. I want to make sure this blue piece right here is in really good shape, because that looks super cool. When you see it from the top side, you can just see that really well. If that's nice and clean, then we'll be able to see that even better. So I'm going to finish cleaning this up, and then we'll get the guts installed. And that is looking a lot better. Now we can get the insides installed. And with that done, we can get the disk drive in. There we go. And now we need to give this fan a good cleaning. I'm just gonna start by brushing all the loose stuff away. I don't want to brush too hard actually, because these are like, it's like paint drops on there or something. I don't want to mess those up. That looks so good. I'm gonna vacuum anything loose up. Now let's come in with some Q-tips and of course our isopropyl alcohol and just clean each blade. I wouldn't say that looks brand new or anything, but that looks pretty good. Now we can install this nice clean fan into the Xbox. And now we just need to get the screws in and the back on, and then we can plug it in and give it a test. And I forgot to put its belt on, but those are easy to do. There we go. Okay, and let's close this patient up, see if it's gonna be alive when we're done. Okay, and that's what the HDMI used to look like. This is what it looks like now. Let's get it plugged in and see if it's gonna turn on and if it's gonna show anything on the screen. Okay, and here we go. Let's hear the custom sound effect. Oh, that's a good one. Nothing on the screen though. Oh, black screen, come on. Yes, I'm so glad to see this one fixed. I did not want to take this thing back apart. Also, we have a disc in here? Oh yeah, we do. We've got an Xbox 360, Call of Duty Black Ops. So a little bonus. So this special edition Xbox Series X is all working. If you like this type of video, you'll probably like the video where I bought 5 broken Xbox Series X's to see if I could fix them. I'll put a link for that video right up on your screen now, so you can come hang out with me over there and see if I can fix them. If you like my shirt today, you can get it over at TronicsFix.com right in our merch store. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have a good one.